There is so much to be learned when we explore the past. The past, not a place to dwell, rather a place to provide insights to rewrite the future. Will we as a society continue to play out the same patterns? What about you, your family too? When you look at your family tree, what do you see? Will you continue to play out the same patterns in this lifetime? Join us as we explore a point in history of race, the Salem witch trials. Yes, there was a gag order placed on the executions in Salem. While this is not the only point in U.S. history that has layers concealed, it surely creates the opportunity to learn. When you think about witchcraft, what comes to mind? When you hear the word witch, what do you think? Are those opinions your own, or have they been cast down, or better yet, created? Again, join us, Divine Scarlet, Meg the Medium, Zolan, and Almond Davy as we explore the town of Salem to learn more about a time in history erased. Please see the link in the description box for our YouTube video. Thank you for listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you so much for listening. Super excited, and we will join you in Salem. I can't wait to be there and see what we learn, feel, and recognize.
So one of the things that came out for me was a lot of this demonizing of women, and not only women, it was men too. But I know there was more women in general when I was watching that, and it looked like almost as if it was maybe only one or two people in the land that caused the frantic to start, but that it had already been starting in Europe. And it kind of, because they settled there first, the Puritans, right, settled there first. It looked to me like there was just like kind of a scared fever in the air.
I get a couple things, but definitely that same thing you're talking about is it felt like they were breeding fear. One of my teachers used to talk about disease being disease in the body. And it feels like there was some sort of discomfort as a collective against whatever witchcraft, whatever layers in society. And I think it's very interesting that this point in time in history actually extended beyond women. Like we can't actually box it into one category of human beings, where so many other points in history where there's been injustice, a lot of, and then it's all blanketed under witchcraft, which only just seems to be like throwing an excuse at whatever happened.
Right. And it also looked like to me that it would even be like, oh, now that, this person's rich in town, I want his farmland. Let's call him a witch or her a witch and, get them taken, or get them taken. We'll take their land. So it was almost like, I guess in a way, like the rich people who wanted to take over the area would just say that about them. Now, I know there was like specifically some girls, and they would have like bouts of shaking, they said. And I guess some like maid said that she had put a spell on them, which I have no idea about that. But to me, I mean, back then they were also more naive about schizophrenia, more naive about any kind of psychosis of the mind, where they're just going to label everything witchcraft.
Definitely. It seems like in 1692, this was like death in the name of the devil. And aside from just like not wanting to look at the shadow, there was a gag order following the executions, to where parts of history is really just wiped away. And we see that today. Even looking back, there are so many subcultures and points in our history that need to be taught, that we need these uncomfortable conversations to come forward, and we don't talk about it. We only choose to look at certain parts in history. And it was interesting the way they talk about it, starting with those two girls. And he was also a priest that was kind of like implanted. He did not grow up in that area, so we don't know his history before getting there, whether it is some sort of mental illness. And I mean, young girls getting attention, like seeing this happen, and it's like, what was breeding there? I guess we'll never truly know.
I mean, even in fact, if they were witches, I mean, who cares about that? I think that we're more open today. And to me, one of my godfather had said to me, like, if you're a woman, that you are a witch technically, because, or he meant that as in you are more connected to your intuition, and it means you are naturally connected to nature easier than a man. A man can work on it and get to that point, but we're by nature closer to nature. And to me, he said that that's all it meant. And he said, we've demonized, even the culture has demonized the idea of what a witch even is. We like black mole on their nose and they're flying in a broom. And that's really not the case. And even if these girls were, holding hands and doing circular motions in the forest, like, like, is that really that big of a deal? And I mean, to me, even if they were doing that, there's this whole thing in Wicca. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Wicca, but they do that spinning thing because it creates kind of like a circular energy vortex to work to just create that bigger energy if you're trying to work with anything, whatever you're trying to do. And I know if you even think about it in the world, if you look at the vortexes on our planet, we have one in Sedona, we have one in Ojai. I don't know on your East Coast where you guys have vortexes, but there's vortexes all around. And to me, it's like, oh, that's just energy that's coming from nature. How is that wrong?
Right. I like that idea that it's not wrong to use nature, and how beautiful that women have this opportunity to return to their bodies once a month. That is labeled a curse, but it is like you can't ignore your body when something happens cyclically and happens to be in line with the cycle of the moon. Can spell from your family, someone in your family?
Oh yeah, my godfather.
That is beautiful. What a great gift to be able to connect with nature and have these conversations about intuition and women. What a gift that is.
Oh yeah, I know he's passed away on now, and I love him. He's actually on my I don't know if you can see that, but he's always there. He's right here.
Aww.
His name is Julian, and I always talk to him just like he's alive still. I'm like, I miss you.
That's beautiful to have that permission to explore the elements and explore who you are as a human being, and that was shared with you in your lineage. What a gift.
Yes. I don't know if you've ever had any feelings of past lives, or who you may have been in a past life, or have any connection there, but I don't think I was in Salem, or we'll see when we get there, right? Because I think sometimes you need to return to the space to like feel what you actually feel like, and you might get something. I know when I went to Florence, Italy, I got a feeling. I was like, oh my God, I've been here before. And it makes sense to me because I do have a past life memory, and don't worry, it doesn't feel sad when I talk about it. I do remember myself getting killed. I remember myself being kidnapped by two figures that were shadow figures in my mind. And one was a girl, one was a boy. They tied my hands behind my back for speaking up. I know it was for speaking up. And they drowned me. They did not, they didn't, no hanging, no fire, but I could see myself drowning. But for some reason, I don't feel the anxiousness you would think that you would feel from being drowned. Although it took me a long time to get back into the water. I was very scared to go into the water in present time. I had to work through that. And then I can see myself from another perspective, looking at myself. And that, I looked it up. I spent a lot of time looking into that, and the dress I was wearing, because I could see it was blue and it was kind of big and like seemed very Renaissance period. So I feel like, this has been happening to keep your voice down for a long time, and it still continues to go on. You may not get killed for it, or maybe you will, but now it's more political, that political side where if you speak up and you say something you should not, you never know what's going to happen. But I feel at least it's kind of, even though we preach that there's this, you can say anything that you want in America, there's always some kind of, your parents will be like, this is not the time and place for this. Or somebody in your family will say that, right? Like if you speak up about something that's not right in front of many people. I don't know if you felt like that too.
Definitely. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm glad you brought up past lives because I feel like some of the fear for expressing who we are today comes from that, either as witnessing or whatever is stored within our lineage. And
Mhm.
there are two things about speaking up that came to mind because part of me was when we talked about speaking to this, I was like, what really is important? And to me, it was about having these uncomfortable conversations or being willing to speak up about something that is shamed. Like we don't, we, there's just so much shame packed with so many marginalized groups that we need this opportunity. Emmanuel Acho, he does the series on uncomfortable conversations with a Black man, and he unpacks the way different families live. And I feel like those conversations bring peace. There's one other interview I watched with Joy Mendoza. I could be wrong on her last name, but she is a survivor of assault. And, after she had that experience, her family didn't like sweep it under the rug. That night they sat down and they're like, tell me what happened. I can't
Mhm.
imagine as a parent hearing that, but what peace does that bring and what opportunity does that provide for her and other survivors to have that opportunity to speak, whether it is history that we choose to ignore.
Hello, everybody. I look like Minnie Mouse, but I think this is supposed to be like cat ears. I'm here. Thanks for coming to Salem with us. And look in there's Crystal. She's pulling her cards over here. That other tour is at 7. It doesn't feel so much like to me like a dark area. It feels more light to me, like there was a lot of magic and beauty being done in the forest. And
Well, we just got back from Salem, so we wanted to do this little video. I found myself that I have more questions than answers after going there than before I went. I don't know how you feel about that.
I totally feel the same way. I was kind of driving home. I was just kind of like, what is real? And I feel like another time you and I have talked, we've talked about like the matrix and what's real here on planet Earth. But I think that that was really amplified during this experience.
So, like one of the things that comes to mind for me is we did go on this little kind of silly witch tour, I guess you can say, but I also gave us a little more information than I knew beforehand. And one of the things they talk about, which I will share screen now, is that there was a lady named Tituba, right? And we think that, can you see the screen? Can you see the picture of her? Can you?
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, so she was a lady who was, from the African descent. They say supposedly she came from like the Caribbean area, I believe. And but they don't know again. And they said her husband could have been from Africa, but again, these people are slaves. They were taken from their country, right? And so to me, when you see something like this, they're going to have a different kind of background. They in that kind of background for spirituality, they believe more in plant life, getting used to the earth, using the earth medicine to help. I was told, again by my godfather, that he said that the reason the black magic is called black magic is because it's literally from the black people, the slaves that were brought over, and they had to hide the magic in the Christian terminology so that they wouldn't get killed. So again, we have somebody here who's being misinterpreted by, it could be even racism. It's just the way of their life and their being. So this is a kind of a funny picture, but then Crystal also talked about this picture with Apple and the symbolism of that apple. And I'll let you go on about that.
Yeah, I thought it was genius to actually put that in this depiction of her with the family. When you think of, you know, Adam and Eve, this forbidden fruit, this forbidden knowledge, and more so than forbidden is the shame associated with it, that she sits in the seat of shame, where this domino effect continued. And I appreciate that you spoke to her culture being different, because I was wondering if by chance they've talked about this hysteria, whether there was illness, what had happened. I forgot there's one other thing that they thought the illness could be, or seizures.
Mm-hmm.
And was she trying to heal them? Was there some sort of natural remedy? And she took the brunt of whatever happened, and it just spiraled into this, let me take your land, and everyone is pointing fingers at everyone just to either take them out or not be taken out. It's hard to say.
Basically, was it Sarah Good or was it the other daughter? That basically, I'll share one more picture too. So the frenzy, they say, really started over, well, I guess Salem back in the day was Danvers, and also, I don't know how to say it, I say Peabody, but they didn't pronounce it like that. Do you remember how they pronounced it? I'm not sure, but it started in this house, which is where Tituba and they all lived. And basically it's I wanted to share that with you really quick. And so apparently this was the area that Tituba and the young two children lived, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the girls, I think it was Sarah Good, or could have been the other daughter, one of them suffered from epilepsy, or what we would consider epilepsy in today's world. So she could have, what you were saying, was trying to use the healing magic of what she knew how to heal something, and they just took it as witchcraft. And they also said during this time, they were also coming from Europe, where they had their own little witch hunts, so they continued it onto this land. And they also said that by them having to come run in with the Native Americans, and that we were taking over their land too. I won't say we, but the Puritans were taking over their land too. That they also just lumped them into, they're all working for the devil, because it was just a big fear factor going on.
It amazes me how this just like spiraled out of control to this one little seed of fear. 4 execution dates, people coming from miles around to watch people being hung. And it wasn't a quick hanging. It was where they were turned off the ladder. So it took some time, which, any convulsions or shaking during the process of death would just reiterate this idea that they were possessed, and by killing them, the devil was being released. And then you have a reverend citing the Lord's Prayer. Finally the crowd is waking up saying, wait, because they thought witches couldn't say the Lord's Prayer. And he recited it perfectly, and still they executed him. And it was like, I think that was close to the end of it, before they kind of closed the chapter, erased as much history as possible, and put a gag order into ever talking about it. And here we are several years later, going on vacation, and it's another type of madness, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah, no, I definitely felt that. I know I communicated that with you when I started. Well, we went on Halloween, which kind of was a bad idea. So if you guys are going, don't go on Halloween. It feels like it's just cheapened the whole thing. You have little kids putting their heads in a block that'll chop their heads off, and going, yeah, it's just was like, yeah, and instead I'd like to see it as they did have the Sarah Good Memorial and the cemetery there. Again, who knows what's left there for real, because they said that at some point in time there was flooding, and and even the memorial tombs and bodies were washing up and going through restaurants. And so I really feel like that whole town, not even just that main square, is haunted, because it's just has it, there's so much death. And I think that the death that I feel is the injustice of the death, and it holds a stronger sense of presence to me.
Um, I don't know how to say this with full respect to the spectrum of the human experience and death, but it's like, was there closure, and how is the crossing happening to kind of, and it made me think of two things, especially after staying in that house, as are ghosts actually teachers? I know from doing mediumship, you and Meg probably also know that, when you channel in someone who's passed, they still have their personality. They still have the remnants of their earthly experience that comes through as you channel them, which reiterates what you said. But it's like, are some of these ghosts or lingering presence still there to teach us, either to teach us like there's more than our human experience, or hey, pay attention to something, whatever that is. I don't know. I still haven't come to any conclusion. But after some of our conversations, I was like, how many ghosts are here to teach us, just like humans are here to teach us, as ridiculous as some of our experiences might be?
Yeah, I mean, there's all different kinds, I believe there's different kinds. Like I feel like there are dark, presence. When I say dark, it could have even been, a man who was one of the people who helped slaughter those people. Some people have bad spirits, they just have, even when they're alive, they have bad spirits. So I feel like that's kind of also a residue.
Mhm.
We stayed in this house, I should have looked at where it was before we got it, but I did not. And it was really, really, really close to the main square where many people were put to death. And I didn't realize, if I knew it was that close, I would have never got that place. But I couldn't sleep at all. Like I was scared, and I was like, there's something here and I don't know exactly what it is, but I could tell it was like a feeling of like they didn't want us there. I don't think they wanted us there. And I slept with one eye open all night, basically, like someone's looking at me, like someone's looking at me. Not to be scared of ghosts, because I think there are so many ones, like there's guides, there's your family who's passed on, who I believe do help you through life. So I don't think like haunting is that. And we weren't actually looking for a haunting on our trip. We were just looking to go to Salem. I do want to pull up one more picture here. And hopefully I can share it properly. I felt, and I don't know about you, but I felt such an incredible beauty. The only place I felt gorgeous beauty was in the forest. What do you?
That it was nice to get back to nature, especially after being around so much pavement. Being in the city, it felt like an opportunity to make peace, to be
Mhm.
quiet and still, for sure.
Well, I don't know what I felt. I felt like it was the only place that I felt like maybe there was true magic going on, like without any kind of darkness. I felt if people were doing Wicca in the forest, people were, gathering their plant medicines or whatever they may have been doing in the forest, it felt light to me. Like I really loved it. Like, this picture doesn't show justice, of course. There was like so much. It was like running streams, and it was just felt really beautiful to me. Crystal's a little bit more gets to see this kind of stuff all the time because she lives on the East Coast, but over here in the West Coast, we don't even have orange leaves. That's the only place that I felt like, oh, this is like, if they did magic in this part, like there's some kind of beauty that still is there.
Yeah, I can see that, and nothing felt like it was clouding, and the sound of the water stream. It was, yeah, it was a beautiful moment for sure.
And it left me just like going, I'm gonna research this even more when I get home. Oh, I did want to bring one more thing up. That tattoo, but I was researching that she actually was the one who said she confessed to being a witch because I guess you had to, or you would get hung. Like you had more chance in confessing than to live than if you didn't. So she did confess and she got let go out of prison. Guess why? Because the slave owner wanted to make money off of her and sold her. So it's like, there you go. There's a perfect idea of like what everything comes down to is like, being scared and of different things, different races, different backgrounds, and money. So
The way they move property around and the way they chose who they would execute is just it's ridiculous, to put it lightly. And so it's no surprise that there would be unfinished business in the world between death and the living, that there would still be spirits lingering around with resentment, guilt, and heaviness, that I think is easy to pick up on. And on the flip side, you have the tourist industry, which I'm trying to grapple with this because there's some good that comes out of it. Those, maybe some people got educated, maybe some people gained a new level of awareness, and then some people are putting their money down that helps someone feed their family, which is good. And so there's, again, like I think you put it really well, more questions than answers, such as life.
Yeah, and it looks like that when you do start researching it, it starts seeming like basically they have to go through these girls' diaries to figure anything out, because the actual history books don't have much in them, on purpose, of course. So as all US history was a little bit, BS.
Right. Yes, what's real and what's not, and what we choose to put out. And it's sad, whoever spoke up got put on the list of people to be executed, which
Yeah.
How do you find justice from there? And I think it's when they could actually see clearly that innocent were being hung, that there was actually a change that was made. But it was sad it had to get to that point.
Yeah, and one thing I did research too was that if you thought about this, like, okay, we talk a lot together about women and being in a man's society. And at this point in time, it was very much male dominated. Pretty much a woman, all they wanted to do was get married and have somebody to marry them so that they could have survival, even though their survival rate was like super, like even if they didn't get killed or any of this happened, their survival rate was like in their 40s. So like I would probably be dying anytime soon anyway because of all the health and conditions. So just imagine their life just thinking, I just have to have a kid to live on and somebody to take care of me. So I think with that in mind, them always being in like the backgrounds, never really getting any attention, that I was reading that that's another reason why like a lot of these girls started mimicking and saying they were witches and speaking out against this hypocrisy that was going on, because it gave them a voice. Like kind of like the Me Too movement right now, where it kind of gave them a voice and why they wanted to join in. Because that's one thing I left thinking, like, why would they want to do that? Like, what did they want? If they knew that was going to happen to them, why would they do that? So I started researching more and more about that, and I started realizing, well, this was their voice, and enough girls coming together with a voice you think might have been heard, but at that time there was no place for that. So
I didn't think of it that way. I thought of attention, and we had talked about that, and I think sometimes we kind of roll with an energy, we roll with what's going on without clearly thinking it through. But I never thought of it as having a voice. And you can see it now, like some people claim being a witch as that, but that has a different context today than it did. Well put.
Well, if anybody has any more things to add or have any comments or know about something we didn't bring up, please put your comments in below or questions, and we'll see what we can figure out together. Anything else, Crystal?
No, thank you so much for this experience. Awesome to spend the weekend with you.